And Big East basketball is back as number 11 Creighton visits the Providence Friars in a Big East tilt. Welcome to the first game of the year on Courtside with Sam Barber. I'm Sam Barber, and we have an exciting match today as number 11 Creighton and Zagorowski look to take on David, Duke, and Providence. This is a two very talented squads that Creighton, we see them as being one of probably the only challenger to Jay Wright's Villanova Wildcats this year in the Big East. Providence, they are a sleeper pick. I guess you can call them a sleeper pick. They were picked third in the Big East as the Friars, led by Ed Cooley, who is now in his 10th season at PC. Greg McDermott having the 1 year up on Coach Cooley, as McDermott is in his 11th season in Omaha. And this game is quite, it's really kicking off the first few games that the Big East has today, as there's another noon tip-off game as DePaul takes on St. John's from the Empire State, but also Seton Hall and Butler are tipping off at 4:30, and then later on in the day it is Marquette and Georgetown. So a stellar quadruple header if you are a Big East basketball fan. Sadly, number 3 Villanova and Xavier, the heavily touted matchup. Colin Gillespie and Jeremiah Earl Robinson, they are sadly on pause due to COVID-19 complications, and head coach Jay Wright being one of those players or staff members with the coronavirus. So Villanova and Xavier no longer taking place. However, that does not stop us from having some exciting Saturday college basketball from the Alumni Arena in Providence, Rhode Island. This matchup is sort of, once you think of series, it doesn't really go back that far, only to the 60s. It was the first meeting happening in 1961, and the Friars are leading the series 16-11. And this is Creighton obviously has not had as much sustainable success in terms of their basketball programs as Providence has. So if you are the Providence Friars, you're going to want to sort of get back to your winning ways in this series. Creighton has won 3 of the last 4 meetings, and last year, Creighton, the Blue Jays, finished 24-7 overall. So they were destined to make the NCAA tournament. Obviously, it was canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. But that is the Blue Jays. They're coming off a 24-7 season, 13-5 in the Big East. Providence, they're 19-12 overall, 12-6 in the Big East. So a little bit behind the Blue Jays last year in the Big East standings. However, the Friars were probably either going to be into the field or just right on the outside of the field looking in. And in terms of 2021 bracketology, the Blue Jays, right now, they're a 4 seed in Region 2, taking on the Liberty Flames. If my projections were going to be used as the 2021 field. However, they're not. But after such a blockbuster weekend of college hoops, once again, this field is certainly going to be updated. If Providence wins, will they be into the field as an 11 or 10 seed? And with a win or loss, how will that affect Creighton's standings? As we've seen the Blue Jays in some bracket predictions as high as a number 1 seed and as low as a 6 seed. So this is set to be another exciting matchup in the Big East. The Blue Jays led with Denzel Mahoney, the senior from Florida, as well as Marcus Zagorowski. Those are 2 players, if you are a Providence fan, you're going to want to sort of know, and because they're going to make their presence known on both ends of the court. The former in Mahomey averaging 15 points per game, and the latter in Zegarowski, he's averaging 4 rebounds per game, but also 5 assists per game. So he loves to share the ball. This is an elite ball sharing club, and will definitely be a team to look out for as the Big East play is really starting to heat up. Most teams, with the exception of DePaul, due to their late start, have gotten in at least 2 Big East games this season. But we are just a couple of minutes away from tip-off from Alumni Hall in Providence, Rhode Island. Ed Cooley, he is definitely a namesake in the sport, and Greg McDermott making a name for himself. He has plenty of accolades, postseason accolades, regular season accolades dating back to the 90s, and this is a pretty extensive coaching stint for McDermott and also Coach Cooley. So this is just some other components to look at for if you're Creighton and if you're Providence. For Creighton, you versus Xavier, you come up with a 66-61 victory over the Musketeers, and during that, you had 4 players in double figures. You had Jones came off the bench for 13 points and 4 rebounds. This is, once you can tap into your bench adequately, there's really no stopping you. Tapping into your bench is going to be critical if you are going to be a multifaceted team, and we saw Antoine Jones come off the bench, 13 points, 4 rebounds against the Musketeers, the sophomore from Orlando, Florida. And also, a downside of that matchup against Xavier, Jefferson and Balak only combined for 4 for 15 shooting for 5 and 7 points respectively. So it was not really it wasn't a banner day for Jefferson or Balak, but those things happen. And for the Providence Friars, they're coming off a victory over the Butler Bulldogs, a 71-55 advantage over Butler's a Butler squad that has not really been the best in the past couple seasons. We know that they have had quite the extensive history. However, this is not one of those years. And versus the Bulldogs, they had 4 players in double figures as well. Duke led the way with 20 points and 22 points rather, and 13 rebounds, and they shot 58% from the floor. That was those are the 2 things that stick out tremendously for me, and should resonate with PC fans. However, there is, much like Creighton, one downside, and that was that they were out-rebounded on the offensive side of the glass 14-4, so a -10 differential on the offensive side of the glass. But a very exciting matchup, as Creighton right now stands at 3-1 in the Big East and 7-2 overall. Providence right behind them, also posting a 3-1 record, but 7-3 overall. They trail the likes of Villanova and Seton Hall in the Big East rankings. We know UConn back into the Big East, jumping ship from the American Athletic, and we also have the likes of Xavier, Marquette, and Georgetown and St. John's rounding out the field, and then DePaul at the bottom. But Big East hoops are back. I'm so glad to have you guys here for the first game of the new year. Happy New Year's, by the way, as 2021 is just a couple days into the new year, and what could be better? We have Big East hoops back. In the starting lineups, Marcus Zegarowski, Mitch Ballock, Denzel Mahoney, Christian Bishop, and Damian Jefferson for the Blue Jays. And for Providence, David Duke, Jared Bynum, AJ Reeves, Jimmy Nichols Jr., and Nate Watson rounding out the starting 5 for PC. And the Blue Jays and Friars are getting ready to tip off as the visiting Creighton Blue Jays control the tip. As we are from Alumni Hall in Providence, Rhode Island. As the Blue Jays looking to pick up a critical road victory in conference play. And it's Creighton inside trying to elevate, but that won't fall for the first shot for CU. And Providence has won their 5 out of their last 6 as we see David Duke with the ball. Now into the hands of number 11. Now, this is a Providence team that likes to shoot the 3 ball, as we almost just saw right there, but 6 on the shot clock. The Friars got to get something to go. He kicks it out to Reeves. Reeves for 3, late in the shot clock. That won't fall as it rims out. Here comes the Blue Jays. And the Blue Jays for the top of the key, and that's good. A 3 for Creighton as Marcus Zagorowski gets the offense going for in the early goings, as we're just about a minute gone in this first half. Bynum now being guarded by Zagorowski. PC trying to go inside. And a blocking foul will be called on Creighton. And looking at Greg McDermott, it is his 11th season in Omaha. He is currently holding a 238 and 118 overall record with the Blue Jays. He has coached with North Dakota State. He also coached with Northern Iowa quite extensively, but he has been at Creighton for quite some time. As Creighton's trying to go inside, they'll kick it out. Providence for 3. Book it! And that is how you respond to an early 3 from your visiting opponent, as the game's all tied up at 3 apiece. Creighton trying to run up a play, and it's stolen away. Here comes Providence on the fast break, and Providence doing the little shake and bake, and Creighton says no, as it is blocked by the likes of Damian Jefferson, the senior from East Chicago, Indiana, using his 6'6" stature to bury the Providence offensive player. As Reeves collects the inbound pass, as Providence trying to get some offensive rhythm as Duke passes it off, and some good ball movement by Providence early on, but Jefferson will pull it down and gives it off to Zagorowski. Jefferson thought about it, but gives it inside. And that won't go, as it's a foul, a blocking foul is being called, I believe, on, that'll be Marcus Zagorowski. And that might be his second foul. And we are just we're not even 3 minutes into the game. And as Zagorowski picks up the foul, 2 turnovers for the Blue Jays in the early going. The cross-court heave. As Duke was looking for someone. But they'll go inside. That won't fall, but back in the hands of Nichols. And there will be a stoppage of play, as that was Watson inside, as Nate Watson, the senior from Portsmouth, Virginia, trying to get it done inside. But 3 early fouls on Creighton. Senior Nate Watson sitting at 6'10", as he'll shoot 2 free throws for the Friars. He buries the first, rattles it home for Providence. And this is a Providence team we mentioned. They are 4th in the Big East, right behind, as Watson connects on both, gives the Friars the 5-3 lead. And this is a Providence team that can definitely surprise. They know how to win, and should not be underestimated in the slightest, as Zagorowski is looking to write something up. As they go inside, another Creighton turnover, rather, as the little inside the lane, but no. And the putback is good as Providence has built an early 4.7-3 lead as Jimmy Nichols Jr., the junior from Conway, South Carolina, gets it to fall, but then it is Jefferson on the other end for the alley-oop score. So back and forth we go inside Alumni Hall. Providence is at the top of the key, and it is off the hands of Creighton, they're saying. So last touch by the Blue Jays. And the good screen by Zagorowski, and he passing it off to Damian Jefferson, and he is in fast transition, and that goes down for the two-handed slam, as it is Damian Jefferson making himself known on both ends of the court after the first Providence turnover. Knots this back up at 7. As Creighton tries to go inside, they'll have that rejected, but it is out of bounds. It will stay with Providence as 4 minutes gone in this first half, as the Providence Friars holding their own against the number 11 team in the nation, and Creighton, as the Blue Jays and Friars are knotted up at 7 apiece. And looking at the teams, both teams, and where they stand in the Big East in terms of scoring production, rebounding, how do both teams compare? Well, if you are Creighton, you're leading the Big East in scoring with nearly 83 points per game. So if you're putting up 83 points per game, you're gonna win quite a few basketball games. They've won 7 of 9 to start the season, and this is definitely a Creighton team that knows how to distribute their scoring, unlike Providence, really, as you're starting 5 in double figures with Zagorowski, Mahoney as well, and Christian Bishop, just to name a few. And in terms of rebounding, you're 5th in rebounding. So that is a category that could really be looked upon by Coach McDermott. They are averaging just north of 38 rebounds per game, so not too shabby. You're most likely going to end up a little bit higher than your average most games. So there's a good chance that you're going to be out rebounding your opponents. And in terms of field goal percentage, they rank first. They're shooting nearly 49% from the floor, 48.8% to be exact, for all you college basketball stat junkies. And in terms of three-point shooting, they're 37% from beyond the arc, which is 5th in the Big East. And free throws, if you're looking for an area to potentially critique this Creighton team, it is at the charity stripe. They are only shooting 66.9% from the free throw line, which ranks 10th in the Big East. So 10th out of 11 for the Blue Jays in terms of free throws. Now, individually, you look at Bishop, he's shooting nearly 71% from the floor. That is first. So if you have Christian Bishop, who is one of the best shooters in the Big East, then much like the 83 points per game stat line, you're going to be winning quite a few games. And this is a Creighton team that can definitely really spread the ball around. And elsewhere, Jefferson, he's shooting nearly 67% from the floor. That's 5th in the Big East. And Kalkbrenner, 57.4% from the floor as well. So, and Jefferson, Damian Jefferson from 3, he is doing phenomenal things. He's 9th in the Big East in terms of three-point shooting. However, he is shooting north of 42%. And looking at Creighton, you have the Friars, they're 75.7 points per game. That's 8th in the Big East in scoring, 9th in rebounds at 35 rebounds per game, as Reeves will inbound the ball as he finds a player, and Providence can't get that one to fall into the hands of Reeves, and Bynum will write up a play. as Bynum gives it off. Providence for three. That won't fall. And it is Jefferson with the rebound. Jefferson trying to find someone, and it's stolen away. Here comes Providence with the easy one-handed slam as the Friars get a cash in on another Creighton turnover. Their first fast points breaks of the game. Zagorowski trying to get inside as he'll pass it off. Jefferson losing his balance, it appears. But the Blue Jays have to do something. He gives it off to Jefferson. Jefferson from the cut. And the lay-in score as Jefferson knocks it back up at 9. And looking Christian Bishop, he's also trying to make his size known. Bishop, he is standing at 6'7", 12.8 points per game for the Blue Jay. And it is the backdoor feed as Providence continues the back and forth notion, and it's poked away by Providence. It will stay on this end. But the steal, as that was David Duke slamming it home off the Creighton turnover, and the backdoor cut is Nichols Jr. So 11-9, Creighton down by 2 points. Passing into the backcourt is Bishop. And here comes Creighton trying to run something up. Creighton will try a three. That won't fall. Bishop taps it up, and it's into the hands of Reeves. And here comes Creighton. Reeves for three. That won't fall. As Bishop pulls on the board, now into the hands of Zagorowski. Zagorowski passing it off inside to Bishop. Bishop trying to find someone. Creighton for three. That rolls out. And the three ball not falling well for either team. As both teams just have one made three-point basket. As if you're Providence, you're seeing the first of Greg Gant, the sophomore from Fayetteville, North Carolina, standing at 6'8" for Ed Cooley's club. And 5 on the shot clock. They got to do something. Providence for three. And the shooting woes continue for both clubs as Zagorowski will try and get something to go. He's being guarded heavily. And a foul and is called on the floor. And it appeared that Jared Bynum, a sophomore from Largo, Maryland, was apparently injured. Denzel Mahoney will go to the bench, and we are getting a first look at the Duke transfer. The Duke transfer, Alex O'Connell. He's a senior from Roswell, Georgia. He transferred from Duke to Creighton to finish off his career, and that won't fall for the Blue Jays, as here comes Providence. Providence has numbers, but the Creighton defense resets, and now Providence will go inside, and that is a lay-in score for A.J. Reeves. And here's a three by Creighton, and a much-needed basket. Marcus Zagorowski says yes, please, as Zagorowski is feeling it from downtown. Reeves trying to drive in. That won't fall, as it was a Blue Jay hitting the deck. They thought about the three. O'Connell for three. That won't fall, as the Friars collect on a empty possession from Providence. And here comes Duke, and that won't fall again. O'Connell ripping down the board. O'Connell gives it off to Zagorowski. Zagorowski thought about the three, but they'll go inside the kick out. And the backdoor cut won't fall, but it will be Antoine Jones, the sophomore, will be going to the free throw line. as Antoine Jones, a 6'6" sophomore from Orlando, Florida. He buries the first one using the glass, that little kiss. And we are seeing number 21 for Providence. We're seeing Ed Crowswell, the junior from Philadelphia, coming in for the first time. And if you are a Creighton fan, you are seeing the likes of number 32, Ryan Kochbenner, the freshman from St. Louis, seeing his first action as Creighton pulls into the lead off free throws, 14-13. So here's Providence trying to get something to go. As the fadeaway, no, that won't fall, but Creighton has numbers. So here comes the Blue Jays, a little shake and bake. That won't go as Providence almost loses that. That was David Duke almost losing the ball as Duke, being lucky he didn't get called for the push-off. Reeves being guarded by O'Connell. Now kicked out three. That hit falls for Providence as the threes are starting to fall for the Friars, and both teams now having 2 3-pointers, but the Providence Friars, as Reeves kicks it out, and it is cash money. Friars up 16-14 off the 3 from Greg Gant. And going back to before the commercial break, we looked at where both teams stood at in terms of statistic-wise for the in the Big East. And if you're looking at David Duke, he is averaging nearly 20 points per game. He's third in the Big East, so he's averaging 19.9 points per game, but he is still third in scoring. That's simply mesmerizing to me, that you could be averaging just about 20 points per game and not have not be first in your respective conference. And Watson, he's just right behind Duke, averaging 19 points per game. That is fourth in the Big East. Watson also nearly 7 rebounds per game. That's 10th in the conference. He's also shooting 63% from the floor. That's fourth in the conference as well. So if you had to look at someone and say, hey, this is Providence's most all-around player, it has to be Nate Watson. It just has to be. Nate Watson, he's really truly an all-around player for Ed Cooley, and that is something that you have to love if you are Coach Cooley. Both players, Nate Watson rather, he is graduating this season, so you will miss the presence of Watson and potentially David Duke, depending on how his season progresses, whether he'll be back in suiting up in black and white for Providence next season for his senior season. However, staying in the present, you must love what you are seeing if you are a Providence fan. And elsewhere in the terms of Providence's team, you're seeing David Duke, Nate Watson, AJ Reeves, number 11, and number 4 and number 5 with Jared Bynum and Jimmy Nichols Jr. Both are Bynum is a sophomore and Nichols Jr. is a junior, so you're going to most likely be getting at least 2 more years out of these respective players. So this is going to be quite the game for as we progress, as it is right now Creighton at the free throw line off the Providence foul. As we see number 32, Ryan Kochbenner, the freshman from St. Louis. He stands at 7 foot. Now, I'm 5'6" on a good day. I could not imagine being 7 feet tall. But here is Kochbenner at the line as he is shooting free throws. Kochbenner can't get the first one to fall. And a lot of talent is coming out of the St. Louis area for college, as Cockbenner connects on the back end. And here comes the Blue Jays. And a huge issue for Providence in their victory against Butler was that they were being out-rebounded on the offensive side of the glass. That is not the case this year. This game, as Providence is up 6-0 in the offensive rebounding department. But we're seeing number 4, Jared Bynum, right now on the sideline trying to work out what appears to be a cramp. Good ball movement by Creighton. O'Connell inside. That won't fall. And here comes Providence, as Duke gives it off into the hands of Reeves. AJ Reeves for 3, and that will go. And the threes are starting to fall for Providence as AJ Reeves cashes in from beyond the arc, as Providence leads 19-15. Now 3 of 9 from beyond the arc. Creighton getting smarter in their ball, in their shot selection, as that's a kicked ball by Providence. And here come into the game for the Blue Jays will be their leading scorer, Mahoney, as Jones and O'Connell take a necessary break. So the Blue Jays get back Denzel Mahoney, as they're trying to write up a play as we pass the halfway point of the first half. Providence with a 19-15 lead. Creighton late in the shot clock, as they will have to do something. And they don't get it off in time, and it's a shot clock violation. And another Creighton turnover. They're starting to pile up, and if you're Coach McDermott, you are not happy, as that is now 5 turnovers for the Blue Jays. Reeves now passing it off, as Duke now at the top of the key. He'll try and write something up, as he's being guarded heavily. And it's a 3 by Providence. And then back-to-back threes for the Friars. And it is all of a sudden a 9-1 scoring run by Providence, as that three-pointer was by Ed Crosswell, as he's starting to feel it from downtown. 22-15 Providence. 9 minutes remaining from Rhode Island. How can the Blue Jays respond? As late in the shot clock once again, and it's a 3 from Creighton, as the back-to-back 3-point shots by both ball clubs, as that was Mitch Ballock, the senior from Kansas, saying, "Let me get in on the fun." Crosswell inside, and he gets his own putback. Lead back to 6. And a correction, rather, that was Noah Horchler for 3 on the other end for Providence. But 24-18 Friars. 10 points in the paint for PC, as they thought about the fake, but Jefferson, and the little kiss, that won't fall, as the miss from Jefferson. And Duke is rejected by Kalkbrenner. And Kalkbrenner, using his size and physicality, a 7-foot freshman. But the nice feed. And on the other end, the 3 falls for number 24 in blue. And something that I love, really, is when players get their own misses, when they stay with the basketball, and much like how we saw Crosswell do so just a little bit ago. And that is truly one of a kind, and definitely shows to your focus within the basketball game, as the Friars are up 24-18 over the visiting Creighton Blue Jays. And one thing that I'm seeing for Creighton is that Denzel Mahoney, a player that is averaging 15 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game. He's had 7 games in double figures. The transfer from Southeast Missouri State. He is being held quite quietly, and not really stuffing the stat sheet per se. And if you're a fan of CU, you're going to want to say, hey, Mahoney, it's your time to shine. You're our leading scorer, and you're going to want to have a good offensive possession and good back-to-back offensive possessions by Mahoney, as well as Marcus Zagorowski, the Hamilton, Massachusetts native. He's been held to somewhat of a quiet day, 13.8 points per game on the season. So it is not really a bad start. If you are Creighton, you have plenty of time, just south of 8 minutes to go in this first half. However, you're not going to want to rely on just 3-point shots if you are Creighton. And that is where a lot of teams can get themselves into messes, as the Blue Jays are down by 6, 24-18. Providence with the lead in the midway portions of this first half. And Creighton and Providence 3-4 in the Big East standings. As if the Big East tournament started today, Creighton would be facing Xavier, the winner of Xavier and DePaul, and the Friars would be facing Xavier. As Duke gets it in from the inbounds, Reeves gives it back off to Duke. Duke inside into Crosswell, and that was last touched, they're saying, by Creighton, as that was last touched by Christian Bishop. So it will stay PC basketball with 14 on the shot clock as Watson gets it into Crosswell. Crosswell being guarded heavily by Bishop, but now gives it off to Reeves. Reeves being guarded by Jefferson. Now 3 on the shot clock as Duke can't get that to fall, but Crosswell tries to stay with it, and that won't go. As the little feed. And Creighton going inside, and it is Jefferson using all ends of the cylinder, as it is Zagorowski dropping dimes for Creighton as the Blue Jays pull within 4. Crosswell. And an offensive foul will be called on Providence. And Damian Jefferson, if you're looking at a player to watch for Creighton, it is Damian Jefferson. The 8 points, 4 for 4 from the field, so a perfect start for Jefferson as he tries to get his Blue Jays ball club back in this thing. So Creighton shooting 7 for 15 from the field. Providence not much better at 9 of 27 as Mahoney. He finds Zagorowski, just passing 7 minutes gone to play in this first half. Zagorowski for 3 and book it. Marcus Zagorowski. That is his second 3 of the game, and he has the Blue Jays back within 1. 24-23, 6:37 to play in the first half. As here's Watson. He gives it off to Duke. Watson with the little fake from Zagorowski. Watson trying to write something up. Duke has to do something as there's 5 on the shot clock. David Duke gives it off inside, and a empty possession as Mahoney scrambles it up. The kick out to the left corner, and it will be Providence basketball. But Zagorowski reading the screen from Watson, as that was something beautiful by Zagorowski, as Duke has the ball. Bynum now being guarded by Zagorowski. 5:49 to play. Bynum driving inside. He'll pass it off, but now back into the hands of number 0 in white, and it's almost stolen away, and it is. And the Blue Jays forcing another turnover, and that all of a sudden it is 6-5 in terms of turnovers as Bishop goes inside off the feed. But here's Zagorowski, thought about the three again, and the risky pass. Mahoney trying to find someone free. Zagorowski for 3, late in the shot clock. That won't fall, but it's tipped back into the hands of Jefferson. Jefferson gives it off. Creighton for 3, and that will fall, as it is back-to-back three-pointers for Creighton. An 8-0 scoring run by the Blue Jays. They find themselves back up again, 26-24 off the 3 from Mitch Ballock. And here's Duke inside, being guarded by Mahoney. Watson calling for it. And it's stolen away again. Here comes Jefferson. Zagorowski on the open, and it's almost coast to coast. Jefferson trying to find someone, and he gets the tough basket, as Jefferson now fueling a 10-0 scoring run by the visiting Creighton Blue Jays, as they are now up 28-24. Damian Jefferson with the dime feed, and back in to Jefferson as he gets his own miss and the putback. Talk about staying with it. Damian Jefferson now with 10 points. And that is the exciting thing about this rebranded Big East. We know that UConn is back into the conference after a several-year hiatus. However, it's going to be quite interesting to see how the dynamic of the conference really works with UConn back in the mix of things. This is honestly, we all know, myself included as an old Big East basketball fan, this is nothing like the old Big East when it's a 15-team conference and you know you're getting a good basketball game night in and night out. However, I will say that the Big East now rebranding in its now 7th year, it is truly lived up to the hype and has delivered some high quality basketball and numerous national champions, as Providence now down 28-24. Just a bit ago, they were up 24-18, trying to stop the bleeding as it's stolen away again. The 7th Providence turnover as Zagorowski, and here's a 3, and that is good by Mitch Ballock. Another 3-pointer, and it's a 13-0 run by Creighton. And talk about coming in out of the timeout, as they are now up 31-24. Duke being guarded heavily. Providence will try and answer on the 3 ball. That won't fall, as Zagorowski finds the rebound. And here's Ballock giving it off to Zagorowski. 3:45 to play. Mahoney being guarded by Reeves. Mahoney inside, and that's blocked. Just a 7-point advantage. 31-24, and it looks like it will be... I think it's going to be Creighton basketball, as a miscommunication may have led to another Providence turnover. But a huge storyline in the game was that the Creighton Blue Jays were turning it over tremendously, and now a plethora of turnovers coming in for Providence, as that is 3 straight turnovers, I believe, for Providence. And if you're the Friars and you're trying to stop this 13-0 scoring run, you're going to want to, and you're doing a lot better than you usually do, but you're going to want to tap into other players aside from David Duke and Nate Watson. Those are your two really offensive go-getters for the team in black and white today. And those are two obviously truly necessary components to your offensive rhythm. However, tap into AJ Reeves, Jared Bynum, Jimmy Nichols Jr., as well as Noah Horschler and Ed Crosswell. You're doing that well today. However, if you're trying to get back into this game, you're going to have to look at more offensive scoring outlets than Duke and Watson. But this is an exciting game thus far for some Big East hoops. As coming up at the half, we will take a look at other games in the Big East, as St. John's and DePaul had a noon tip, and we'll also look at the Marquette Georgetown matchup, as well as the as well as the other matchups in the Big East, and also top 25 action. We know that number 3 Kansas and number 8 Texas are tipping off in a Big 12 battle that will definitely be a huge indicator for Big East supremacy, and also Arizona self-imposing a postseason ban. We will talk about that and much more at the half. And in the Big 12, just looking at the Texas-Kansas matchup, the Longhorns with the early 32-26 lead over the hosting Kansas Jayhawks. There's late in the first half to just under 2 minutes to play in Lawrence, Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. But this is, in our game, we are seeing a three-point bonanza, as it is Creighton on a 13-0 scoring run. And that is thanks in part to Marcus Zagorowski and Mitch Ballock. They are feeling it from downtown. The 3 off the turnover from Providence, as the Friars 4 fouls and 7 turnovers, and Creighton with 3 fouls, and the fadeaway late in the shot clock, as that is Damian Jefferson. We've mentioned his name a lot, as Damian Jefferson makes it a 15-0 scoring run over the last 4 minutes. 3:20 to play. How will Providence stop the bleeding? As Duke being guarded heavily by Mahoney, but it's a 3 by Providence, and that won't fall. But the long rebound will, and Reeves, the feed, and that will go. AJ Reeves, he finally gets the Friars back on the board, and a much-needed answer. And here's Creighton on the other end. That rolls out for Ballock, and it's a 33-27 advantage for the visitors. And here comes David Duke being guarded by Denzel Mahoney. Reeves calling for it. He just had a 3 on this end. Late in the shot clock, the hook pass right into the hands of Zagorowski. And here comes Creighton. Ballock off to Zagorowski. The kiss. That won't fall. And it's going the other end. They're saying offensive foul. But 33-27. Creighton back on top. As we're seeing Crosswell trying to check back in for Providence, as Watson takes a much-needed breather Rather, it will stay Creighton basketball as Zagorowski with a fresh 20. Almost a quick release by Bishop. But here's Ballack giving it off to Zagorowski. Bishop with the screen. Zagorowski being guarded heavily. He's trying to find some open run. And off the glass, Marcus Zagorowski with the little kiss. And the 8-point lead for the Blue Jays. 35-27. Here's Duke with the double team, being guarded double team. And the backdoor cut by Nichols Jr. and Watson. And that will fall for David Duke. And here comes Providence, now only down by 5, 35-30, as David Duke makes it splash from the top of the arc. 1:23 to play. Now into the hands of Mahoney. Mahoney back in the hands of Ballack. Zagorowski for 3. That won't fall. Now Jefferson with the rebound. And it will be Providence basketball. As number 5, Jimmy Nichols Jr. will be doing the inbounding duties, as we see Antoine Jones relieving Denzel Mahoney. Mahoney trying to make something of his somewhat limited minutes in the first half. So 35-30, here comes Providence. Duke for a 3. That won't fall, as Creighton's got numbers. Zagorowski with the dime, and it will go for Damian Jefferson, but it is Marcus Zagorowski dropping dimes today. And Reeves with the elevator on the other end, back within 5, 37-32. As you can see, this offense has sort of picked up Ballack for 3 off the front end. And Nichols with the rebound. And essentially, if you're Providence, there's about a 5 or so second difference on the shot clock. And here comes the Friars. Duke being guarded by Jones. 9 on the shot clock. If you're PC, you got to do something. The hook pass. Inside. And there's a foul. A late foul with 7.9 on the clock. That will be called on Creighton. But Marcus Zagorowski dropping dimes. Wow. Timeout Creighton. The Blue Jays lead 37-32 with just 7.9 ticks left on the game clock, as Creighton is looking to get it done here in the state of Rhode Island on Big East Basketball Saturday. And looking at the Big East before we get to halftime, the DePaul and St. John's game has been postponed. We know that the Blue Demons have had quite the struggles of getting really any semblance of a season going, as it has been postponed right before tip-off, as there were complications due to COVID. But back in our game, 37-32, off the elevating score from AJ Reeves and Damian Jefferson, 14 points on 7 of 8 shooting. Marcus Zagorowski, 11 points on 4 for 7 shooting, and Mitch Ballack almost hitting double digits. He has 9. So 7.2 left in this game, as the Providence Friars, the home team, find themselves down by 5 in the waning moments of the first half. Ed Crosswell, only averaging 3.8 points per game this season. He'll be at the line. He can't hit on the first one, as that hits the back iron. And Crosswell also he's not stuffing the stat sheet, only 2.2 rebounds per game. As the second one rolls out, the Blue Jays got to go. Being trapped and it will stay Creighton basketball with 1.6. So that was Crosswell trying to steal the ball. So 1.6 remaining. How will Creighton end the half? As we see Antoine Jones inbounding. Antoine Jones trying to find someone. He finds Halleck. Halleck for three. And that goes! The three from the logo by Mitch Ballack falls, and the Blue Jays go out with a bang as they lead 40-32. 1.6 on the shot clock, as it was Antoine Jones feeding it from the inbound pass, as that is at the logo. 40-32, and that goes. Nichols Jr. was certainly trying to guard heavily, but Mitch Ballack says book it from the Providence logo, and the Blue Jays lead 40-32 in this ball game, as Ballack now reaches double figures with 12 points. As the Big East is heating up this season, as we just mentioned, the DePaul and St. John's game has been postponed due to COVID-19 problems. Not sure what program the problems are stemming from. However, it is a sad scene nonetheless. But in our game, number 11 Creighton is showing why they're 11th in the nation, as the Antoine Jones inbound pass to Mitch Ballack, and he buries it from the Providence logo, as the Blue Jays lead 40-32 in this ball game. And welcome to the halftime report on Courtside with Sam Barber. As we just mentioned, number 11 Creighton with the 40-32 lead. And elsewhere in the top 25, we do have a stellar top 10 Big 12 battle, as number 8 Texas, the visiting squad, as it is not easy to win in Allen Fieldhouse. They're up by 8 at the half, 37-29 over the third-ranked Kansas Jayhawks and Bill Self. And this is a Texas team we have mentioned time and time again that this is undoubtedly the best Longhorns team for Shaka Smart. So this proves to be no different for Texas, and they should be cashing in potentially on a Big 12 title, but obviously have to get through the regular season first. Can't look too far ahead, but the Longhorns lead 37-29. Their three-point shooting is coming alive from Allen Fieldhouse. And elsewhere in the top 25, we're seeing a little bit of a heavyweight battle between the undefeated Arkansas Razorbacks. They're looking to go to 10-0 on the season, trying to pick up a marquee victory over 12th-ranked Missouri. This is a Missouri team that throughout the week was talked, and throughout last week as well, was talked about as being the only real challenger to the 6th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers. However, it does appear after the Tennessee-Missouri game that Tennessee and Coach Rick Barnes is in a league of their own, as they demolished Missouri earlier this week. But Missouri, with 41 seconds remaining from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and they have a 32-30 edging lead. And coming up in just a little bit, Iowa State hosts second-ranked Baylor as the Bears look to try and go to 9-0 on the season, as the Bears are feeling it in Waco, Texas. As the Big 12 is really, I think, the only conference that can challenge the depth of the Big 10 this season. And this is it's the Baylor team that has plenty of scoring outlets. They're facing an Iowa State team and head coach Steve Prohm, who was supposed to bring the answer to Ames, Iowa, after Coach Hoiberg left for the pros. But that doesn't seem to be the case thus far, as the Cyclones find themselves in the basement of the Big 12. They're right now 2-4. And elsewhere in the top 25. Speaking of a Big Ten battle, the 14th ranked Rutgers Scarlet Knights. They try and pick up a resume boosting victory over the 10th ranked Iowa Hawkeyes. The Hawkeyes just beating Northwestern earlier this week on Tuesday. So that was some exciting basketball to be played. And at 4 o'clock, the West Virginia Mountaineers, who we've mentioned as well as being a challenger to the likes of Kansas and Baylor, they'll be on the road at Oklahoma. This is an Oklahoma team that almost beat Texas Tech just a couple of weeks ago in Lubbock. So Oklahoma knows how to win on the road, and they definitely know how to win at home. And Bob Huggins trying to just keep their team afloat, as they right now stand at 8-2 on the season. But when you're in such a deep conference like the Big 12, you need depth. Keeping your team relevant is necessary. And also at 4 o'clock, number 13, Texas Tech will host Oklahoma State and Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham has been truly remarkable in this in the early portions of his freshman season. So this appears to be no different as the Cowboys try and play to the role of upset bidder in Lubbock. And number 7, Tennessee, we know what the Vols can do. They host Alabama in an SEC battle. The Vols 7-0 on the season and really are one of the most talented teams. I think they're being slept on heavily due to the fact that Villanova, Kansas, Baylor, and Gonzaga are doing tremendous things on the court. But hey, so are the boys in orange. And at 6 o'clock, number 18, Illinois will host Purdue. That game could really go either way, as Io Dosomono and the Fighting Illini trying to get it done against Matt Painter's Purdue Boilermakers. Then at 8 o'clock, number 1, Gonzaga takes on San Francisco. Should be another easy victory for the Bulldogs. They're standing at 9-0, trying to go to 10-0 on the season. And number 17, Michigan State. A lot of blue bloods are struggling in the early goings of this season. North Carolina 5-4, Duke 3-2, Kentucky 1-6, Arizona State not so much a blue blood program, but a team that was hyped up a lot and saying this season they're 4-3. Now Michigan State, yes, they're 6-3, and they play in the what seems to be shark-infested waters, and which is the Big Ten this season. They're 6-3, but the bleeding is by this Michigan State team is horrendous. They are playing at Nebraska, and this is a Nebraska team that was just blown out by 30 or so points against Ohio State just a couple of days ago. So if you're Michigan State and Tom Izzo and you cannot win in Lincoln, the easiest place to win in the Big Ten, then it is time to reevaluate your season. That's 8 o'clock. And then the final top 25 game, number 21, Oregon, takes on Zaire Williams and Oscar da Silva and the Stanford Cardinal. And that should be an exciting matchup. I believe that the Pac-12 title runs through the city of Eugene. Now, elsewhere in the world of college basketball, from I don't know if you want to say off the court issue has been the FBI scandal that has rocked the college basketball world. We have seen that it has done that it has affected the likes of Oklahoma State, NC State, LSU, and Arizona. Arizona being one of the more noteworthy programs that have been affected by this ongoing investigation that is still in the thick of it. And we saw earlier this week, Arizona self-imposed a 1-year postseason ban due to their involvement in the recruiting scandal that really has shaped a certain rhetoric in college basketball for quite some years. And they have had a lot of drawback and a lot of criticism from fellow coaches, fellow players, fellow administrators, and fellow media personnel. And my take on this is I saw someone say, oh, maybe you should suspend the program for a couple of years. I don't see that being a plausible avenue. This doesn't. I don't think that's where it's going. However, it's going to be interesting to see how this really plays out. We saw Oklahoma State self-impose a postseason ban, but there has been speculation that the Cowboys are eligible for the postseason in 2021. Now, whether or not the Wildcats will actually serve that postseason ban is yet to be known. However, I do think that there's reason to be excited and concerned at the same time if you are the Arizona Wildcats. Excitement if you don't have to serve that postseason ban, but anger and frustration if you do. But that is definitely a developing story in the world of college basketball. But elsewhere in the Big East have two games after our game from Providence, and that is Seton Hall and Butler. The Pirates should get the easy victory over Butler. This is a Bulldogs team that is not by any means a contender in the Big East this season. And this is a Seton Hall team that was picked to finish in the middle of the pack in the Big East, I believe 4th in the Big East preseason poll. So should be able to take care of business from South Orange, New Jersey. And later today at 7:30, Georgetown and Marquette, as the Marquette Golden Eagles visit our nation's capital to take on the Hoyas and Patrick Ewing's club. But the Hoyas, they currently stand in the bottom tier of the Big East. This is definitely not your traditional Georgetown team that we are used to seeing. The one I truly believe that the turning point for Georgetown basketball from being a blue blood program to now sort of just being a program was the round of 64 upset loss to number 15 Florida Gulf Coast in the NCAA tournament a few years back when Dunk City was rocking the Hoyas, and there's plenty of defining moments that either shape a program for the better or make a program really not click anymore. And as a Syracuse fan, I think that the defining moment, if you're a Syracuse fan like I am, was the round of 32 loss to Dayton in the 2014 NCAA tournament. We used to be such a, I don't want to say like blue blood program, but a blue blood program, lack of a better term. But this is a team that hasn't really been with it since joining the ACC. We know their extensively long successful history for Syracuse, but back in this game as Creighton leads 40-32. 40-32, Creighton leads it on the road off the feed from Antoine Jones to Mitch Ballack. He definitely was had to get it up before the buzzer went off. There was only 1.6 on the game clock, and he got it off in time from the logo. 40-32, Creighton leads it. So a second half that is sure to be just as exciting as the first half.